Just in time. Just in time. Hi. Good morning. Good evening. Good morning for you as well, Quill, because you just woke up probably. Just like me. But you got here in time. That's the only thing that matters, right? That should be the only one. But yeah, we are here to finish chapter 23. No, you was oh, you were playing D&D. Yeah, that takes a lot of time. I agree. Especially if it's the original D&D with the book. Finish the big battle in this game. Well, we have not yet finished the war. If you remember correctly. I'm ready to finish this chapter. Because I can tell you after this I won't be able to stream for a little bit. At least not at this time. Because of work. Ready! I'm ready as well. I have some little bit of coffee. And we have some really big problems in this story, right here. Not problems in writing problems, but what the heck are you doing? You can see these lines, right? Waving around. My camera is not resonating perfectly. Just a second. There we go. No, it's not working. There's not enough light. Because of stupid clouds outside. And it does that sometimes. But let's just continue the story, shall we? Let's see. Now, for the rest of this chapter of the story I'm about to tell you, I was not there to personally witness. Instead, I'm about to relay to you the testimony of those who told me the story later on. They did so because they wanted the story to be remembered. They wanted me to write it down later on. So at least somebody would remember their brave actions on that day. To be honest, I really don't know what happened to Spike. One moment he was there and the next he was gone. He claimed that he came back for me later, but I had lost consciousness by that point. He hadn't known what happened to him either, hence the reason I am unable to explain it to you. But his strongest theory was that Discord tried to protect Spike by warping the baby dragon away from danger, even as he sent himself and Shadow Discord away. Speaking of Discord, what happened to him was he teleported himself and his dark counterpart to another chaotic dimension, in order to remove both of their influences from the battlefield. Now that he was stuck with an opponent every bit as powerful as himself, and possessed the same knowledge, and yet had darker intentions, Discord figured his best hope was to fight his counterpart to a perpetual stalemate. Their battle raged on throughout countless worlds and eons. They fought on levels we mortals will probably never truly understand. An ultimate chaotic reality bender versus himself. I shudder to think about those who were caught between the titanic fight. It really did not take me long to figure out that Discord was one of the three jokers that Karchak was referring to, and I was the second. From that point on, I needed to deduce whom Karjak thought was the third, because it suggested that whoever it was had the potential to be a major game changer in this campaign. As for the others, let me start with another critical element of the battlefield, which I briefly mentioned earlier, but I will now elaborate upon. Sombra protected his furry heart from the birth of the volcano blast, but she blasted her head hard upon landing, and she has lost consciousness for most of the fight. Actually, she also ended the fight as soon as she regained her consciousness, so I will get to that part later. A great deal of demons and non-living corrupted former mortals tried to exclusively target Furryheart. They all knew that if she fell permanently, all the rest of her lives would forever remain more exposed. They bashed against her barrier in futility for years, but now that it was finally down, they wanted to finish her off once and for all in order to keep that barrier down. Fortunately for her, Sombra alone stood in their way. Some say he fought like a raging demon, some say he fought like a guardian angel. I tend to think the truth was somewhere down in the middle. He probably fought like a pony who loved his majesty. He fought to make up for all his mistakes and to help Crystal Empire to rise to glory again. He fought with the determination of every love he ever had in that empire, and who might get the chance to rise again. Furryheart was unconscious and at his hooves, living proof that a better future was possible, but it was being threatened. That which he dearly loved was being threatened, so he did not hold back. I heard that the crystal sphere protecting his majesty grew spikes, and spikes grew from the spikes. I heard that he created a sword and swung it delicately with expertise. I heard he stabbed one of his foes with his own horn, not even caring if the effort would damage his horn, which fortunately for us, it did not. Someone was screaming, "No!" over and over again, as his magic and limbs was a constant blur of motion. For example, he created a cloud of pointed crystal spikes and then a whirl around him, faster and faster, shredding apart any creature that dared to stay too close to his beloved majesty. Being a time clone had given him infinite stamina, but magic was another story. All of the time clones, magic regenerated at a normal rate. For Sombra during this fight, that meant whatever he had, what he spent remained gone for the rest of the fight, as he fought desperately on to protect her heart with every second of that battle. That was why he did it, and that was all he could think to accomplish. Fight with all his might, just to protect one more second, and the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. This all changed when Princess Cadance and Shining Armor caught up to him. Their arrival delayed with battles on their own. They fought as hard as quickly as they could in order to get their future daughter as fast as they could. I heard they even amazed themselves with the feats they managed to pull in these epic moments. When at last they finally caught up to their unconscious daughter, they touched each other's hands together. Cadance cast a love spell at her husband, which he then returned to her, which she used to return him, and back and forth. It kept growing, kept building, until they lifted off the ground, and created an explosion of brilliant light, filled with the power of magic of their love. This blasted back every demon and non-living opponent away from the vicinity. It will restore some of Sombra's magical return. After that, all they had to do was to concentrate on maintaining the barrier. Shining Armor thanked Sombra profusely for all of his efforts in defending his daughter so far, but also ordered him to leave in order to protect the others. At first, Sombra was reluctant to go, until Shining Armor made the following argument. Shining Armor tried to convince Sombra to imagine what Flurry Heart would have wanted if she were awake right now. Some of her subjects were out there, and many friends and family as well. Shining Armor also thought there was a tactical move Sombra could do while out there. Shining Armor encouraged Sombra to find either Mage Motherbook, Sakura, the Doctor, or Vision, and bring any of them back to help heal and revive Flurry Heart. Once Flurry Heart regained consciousness, she could then summon the Crystal Heart again and use it to protect every other good-hearted creature in the vicinity. I was about to ask, wait, Vision isn't there? But yeah, the young Vision is there. I remember now. The young Vision is there, not the old Vision. Who is too powerful to do anything here. Seeing the strategy and wisdom in this situation finally convinced Sombra to cooperate. It was a good thing that he did that too. His efforts helped to save many more of our friends, but I will get back to that later. While many of the demons and unliving creatures targeted Flurry Heart exclusively until they could no longer get to her thanks to her parents' barrier magic, there were still plenty more to target every other creature. My friends also started with several disadvantages. They were scattered, injured, and some were even unconscious, as I previously established with Flurry Heart, but remarkably, none had died yet due to that volcano blast, except for maybe one, but the ongoing situation made it quite difficult to maintain their status. For a while, there they were, cut off from each other due to the black blizzard storm. It froze their limbs, and it chilled their souls, which basically stuck out their courage like parasite. The storm was also too loud to audibly tell where their other allies were. At best, they could occasionally see bright flashes of light caused by powerful spells from one another of the unicorns. They were injured, lost, disoriented, freezing. Their courage was being forcibly drained from them. They were choking on volcanic smoke, and some of them were under direct assault by one of many evil creatures surrounding them. We brought a powerful army with us, and it had some of the most legendary ponies in all of Western. But on top of all of these problems, and you can understand why they were under a great deal of pressure first. So that pressure was momentarily abated when Discord turned the volcano into ice cream and the storm clouds into chocolate raining cotton candy. But then the battle was complicated again due to all the changes both Discord and Shadow Discord caused, until later, when both of the creatures were wiped away, which reestablished the original conditions for all of our friends and enemies except doing some of those changes. Some of our friends and enemies moved about and affected the battlefield in various different ways later on. Regrouping, eventually, turned into a top priority for my friends, but that effort was hard won. Several unicorns of the group, such as Twilight, Celestia, Luna, Starsword, and few others, used magic to enhance their voice and call out to all their allies to regather and regroup. I have to ask, why? You said several unicorns of the group, and you mentioned only one, because the other three are not unicorns. Even if their allies heard that, however, they had to fight, and all kinds of monsters in between. Fortunately, the Royal Legion and the Wonderbots managed to organize themselves the fastest. Under orders from several princesses, they scouted about for their allies and informed them to where to regroup. Sometimes they also swooped in and carried their allies in aloft in order to personally deliver them back to safer ground. Gathering our allies together did the same for the enemy, because it consolidated all the remaining targets to one area, but it was still worth it. The more my allies collected together, the more they mounted an effective defense despite the gathering pressure against them. Magical beams flew. Hooves were swung, weapons were swung. The mighty Ham and Hector swung through sweats of enemies with every swing of their mighty axes. Moat Pie punched the bolter out of the ground, then chucked it at various flying bodies like a living catapult, or had a giant rock roll across the line of monsters, and thus threatening every enemy in the rock's path. Rockhoof was in a similar situation. As the only pony as large as the ancient horses of this time period, even a little bigger, I think. He had the brawn necessary to tear chunks of rocks out of the earth and chuck it away at monsters with his trusty shovel. At the same time, he dug a trench for some more injured or less combat-capable ponies to escape, while he remained to continue to cover them overhead. They told me Dorothy, my mother, and Somnambula all sang a song together in that ditch, which was eventually picked up and sung by every pony that heard them. It helped unite their spirit and restore their courage, which was literally under assault, and it also served as an audible lure to gather the rest of our allies. They say their singing even diminished the severity of the weather somehow. If the Dark Star's evil magic was the cause of the hostile weather, then their courage and uplifting singing dispelled that evil and weakened its influence over the weather. Mage Meadowbrook and Zakura both standing there injured within the trench that Rockhoof helped to dig up, but most of their supplies was in Vision's dimensional saddlebag. Although blind, Vision could empathetically sense the direction of her allies, and even help to find them. At their request, she tossed Mage Meadowbrook and Zakura's saddlebag, so they could start pouring through it and heal all those injured ponies. That was not all that was in those saddlebags. It also had many other types of supplies too, like Pinky's party bombs, Applejack's food supplies, Tux's extra smoke bombs, and fireworks. These supplies were dug out in a hurry and tossed upward, so one of those Pegasus ponies snatched up and dropped their payload upon their enemies. Those enemies were dazzled and even burned by Tux's fireworks. They were lost and disoriented by his smoke bombs, although the heavy winds made short work of that. Pinky's king battle slowed them down and made it too sticky to fight effectively. Applejack's delicious spice, may they rest in peace, was dropped upon the faces of various enemies. Some even posed to lick it up. I see what you did there. Many creatures in this age had never tasted something so good, so they occasionally grew distracted with that. Would the enemies stop to lick it up? We are in a mappy, so yes. But in a war they wouldn't. As my friend continued to collect together, the Wonderboards got even more organized and flew in a rapid circle in order to create a control tornado. They swept this back and forth to collect various enemies that subsequently scattered them. My uncle, Ramadan, at one time gave them a better option. He drove his forward hooves into the ground and focused on his magic. The land shook, cracks formed in the earth, then split apart. He created a giant fissure in the earth. He told his allies to sweep the enemies into it. The Wonderbots were especially effective at the tactic. They swept in enemies by drafts into that fissure. The mighty Ham and my own companions, Hector, Tibbons, Theseus, lined up at the edge of the fissure and swept down any enemy that tried to climb back up the fissure after being tossed down into it. The boars also flapped their wings in unison and caused the beast breathe a powerful gust of wind that knocked over any enemy that was near the fissure, and drove them down into the fissure while they were flying above it. I heard Celestia's magic was actually extra effective against the demons or living creatures. I think with dark magic proved extra vulnerable to her sunbeams. Then she projected it either from her horn or radiating in a massive area, which at least I heard them, but some were also incinerated. I heard Luna fought like a beast. She tirelessly threw out a pair of enchanted crystal swords and whirled them around her in order to clear the whole sweats of enemies. I see the reference from the Fall of the Crystal Empire, or whatever it is. Yeah, it is the Fall of the Crystal Empire. Everyone, she chopped down. She never got up again. She activated several runic symbols in midair that allowed her to suddenly accelerate when she charged through the symbols. I heard she crashed like a meteor on a large group of enemies, then summoned a bunch of copies of her crystal swords using her magic, and either rained it down upon them or spun swords in a circle around her at high velocity. She helped guide the more injured or powerless ponies to the safety of the camp by shooting beam after beam to defend any of her friends. Starlight Grimmer very likely had the most powerful and the focused horror beams. She cast a lot of other spells too: barrier magic, speed spells, temporary duplication spells, and whirling balls of energy she freely controlled to work back and forth. Her magic was not her only strength. Starlight was also a tactical leader who was put in charge of retrieval missions. What that meant was she helped to skillfully and intelligently guide the others back to the gathering base camp, and she was put in charge of others who joined her. She kept surveying the situation, passing quick commands to the whole teams of ponies she led, and kept bringing more and more of them back together. In a similar line, but far less magical strength, Stygian gave tactical advice directly from the collecting base. He listened to the feedback of various groups he sent out, and the advice he gave in return improved as time went on. He hadn't just helped to organize the teams, one of which he put Starlight in charge of. He also gave them advice on how to defeat the various enemies they were encountering. Now that an actual battle was occurring, they were fighting many different types of opponents, and they all had their strengths and weaknesses. As he gained this knowledge, he shared it back to the others, which in turn improved their performance in later encounters. See, Garper, this is what you are missing because you were stupid enough to listen to the darkness. Star Swirl was easily one of the great masters of the battlefield. He was able to cast spells no other pony could. Few examples of things I heard were time manipulation, opening portals to technically remove either of his allies or enemies or allies about. For example, it was his advice to have a bunch of the dragons gather in one place and prepare to build fire at whatever came through the portal he would open near their position. After establishing that, he sent enemy after enemy who charged at him or others through a portal that led to a group of allied dragons, all surrounding the portal, and all breathed coordinated fire breath attack that burnt each enemy to cinders in seconds. Wait, how many dragons are there? I thought only 2 of them went there and one of them was basically killed. I wasn't counting Spike, by the way. I might have been missed something at the introductions. He also conjured massive magical webs of light that ensnared the entire groups of enemies, where he or his allies more easily mowed them down afterwards. He also temporarily summoned extra planar beings and send them to attack his enemies. He was also responsible for summoning a giant comet, but I get back to that part later. Okay. I just didn't remember them then. That's the magical gem given to Rarity. She was also invaluable in the battle. This gem, or gems I should say, was made of starlight dust, and it helped her to create magical force construct. Basically, they were barriers type spells that could be easily customizable in terms of shape and size, and they could move. Equestria girls? Maybe? She had something exactly like this when she got sucked up into a magical comic book. Oh, that as well, okay. Of all things, within it she became a persona of one of the superheroines within the story, who in turn had access to magical gem that did something just like it. I remember she said, I do ever so much enjoy a functional accessory. I heard she primarily used this device for defense, utilitarian and crowd control purposes. Despite its capabilities, she rarely used it for direct offense, even though I think the item was theoretically capable of it. My guess is that was simply a choice based on her own personality. The item still drew upon her magic, but it focused in it ways she normally could not. Basically, it was like having a second cutie mark, one that focused on high customizable berry magic. That was very helpful. With it, she expertly controlled the flow of battle and protected the more defenseless ponies. It was basically like the red crystal, which is now black. Rarity was actually one of the ponies sent with Starlight Glimmer's team in order to retrieve other ponies, and thanks to Starlight's tactical and inspirational leadership, which was eventually further refined by Stygion's technical knowledge, Rarity was able to make the best use of these gems. She had complained about how messy she had gotten, or how rude her enemies were, but she cared enough about her fans to tolerate inconvenience temporarily. That hadn't stopped her from complaining about it, but at least she fought on nonetheless. Rainbow Dash and Flash Magnus I kind of already covered. They were organizing the flight teams, and I already told you what they did. I will add this though. Flash Magnus and his Royal Legion were not as good at flying as the Wonderbolts, even though 2 years of extra training time by traveling north with us. But they had more experience as warriors. They could not do fancy maneuvers in the sky or conjure tornado as easily as the Poles did, but they knew how to use their weapons and shields in a coordinated manner, and they knew how to use the terrain offensively and defensively. They often brought in storm clouds and used lightning against their enemies, or at least used it for tactical concealment. The Royal Legion were especially devastating when they dove down from the sky with spears aimed ahead of them. With that much built momentum, they maximized the effectiveness of the spears. They were also all armed with shields, which they used to protect ponies from all air projected spikes or bright weapon attacks. Flash Magnus was especially effective at this with his magical fireproof shield known as Tidus. I heard he was very busy with that shield. He even used it offensively to bash away opponents, to daze them, knock them away, or finish off a weakened opponent. With him, the Wolves, our allies, had air superiority, but that was an advantage they had to struggle to maintain. Some of the enemies could fly too, after all, and they even outnumbered us initially. My father defended the base camp. His wife was there, and he was not about to leave her side. As I established earlier, my mother's main contribution was her singing, which others quote on do. I can't imagine my father doing that too much, however. It's not that he doesn't have a good singing voice. He does, It's just that at the time, I think he was focusing mainly on approaching threats. While he is and was capable of basic attacks, telekinesis and barrier spells, my father had access to a wider range of spells than a standard unicorn. I even have a feeling he outclassed his brother on that regard, but his brother was better at actually performing the fewer spells he knew, so the talents kind of balanced out in that regard. Among some of the more rare spells in my father, among some of the more rare spells my father had access was healing magic. I learned that from him too during another march. It was very useful. If time consuming and sadly costly spell was super useful since it could save a pony's life. Far better to have a strong ally at your back rather than a dead one, and spells like this help to keep them strong. He was nowhere near as good as Starswell, nor would he expect to be, but I also believe he outclassed most of the standard unicorns, because magical study was his profession in life. He learned how to use it to its best potential through years of study and practice. He also had a lot of practical knowledge, not all of which was useful on that particular day, but it came in handy many other moments during the 2-year trek. He mostly just stuck close to Silver Shine. He wanted to spend every moment with her, as much as he could, even if he knew they both had a temporary existence. Then, there was your mother. Father Wind released a long breath. Like me? She was among the few ponies on the battlefield that was real, so she had plenty of time to fill me in on her side of the story over the years. She was amazing. It was like a true superheroine come to life, and one who had almost godlike potential, at least for brief spurts. She was already formidable enough to begin with all the years of training with Puffball and the Doctor. Then further... Puffball? Wait. Do you mean the Puffball who was teleported on the rainbow dancing? Or do you mean another Puffball? I don't remember you mentioning other Puffballs. Also, the music just stopped, so we don't want happy music at this time, do we? Then further augmented by the prism armor. The rest of that game. Oh, I thought you were speaking about someone because you used big letters here. I think you should fix this. It's just a puffball instead of. Now I know about the puffball, the game, but I thought it was about somebody. Or some pony, because you used a big letter at the beginning. She was nearly as inexhaustible as any of the time cones. But on top of that, she had formidable combat skills and experience to draw upon. That Papa is the name of the game, but you don't use big letters for a name of the game. Even without her augmenting her strength, she already started out really strong. Her armor and its weapons were the perfect tools to deal with opponents like this, both offensively and defensively. A lot of ponies owed their lives to her efforts. since she did have the ability to briefly augment her abilities and potentially to extreme heights, Stygian and Starlight guided her to fight the more formidable opponents on the battlefield. She kicked, stomped, stabbed, bashed, rammed, sliced and ripped them apart with her bare hooves. Do note, super strength is almost useless without endurance to back it up. If you punch a wall with enough force to break it down, you would only end up shattering your own hoof instead of the wall, unless the endurance of the hoof was augmented too. In that case, if endurance and strength exceeded the wall's endurance, then it broke instead of her hoofs. Just little something to keep in mind, for I assure you, your mother kept that in mind due to necessity. But obviously she is augmented all the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Thanks to the plot armor of Crystal Heart. Another one of the abilities she also had was the ability to augment her own natural healing, so even if the enemies managed to land a few blows, it did not keep her down for long. The true danger in the long gallop was exhausting her supply of magic she needed to augment herself, so she typically had to use the boost sparingly as needed. Yep, she augments herself when needed. Most of the time she doesn't need it because she is strong as herself as well. Mysteriously, the doctor was missing from the battle for a while, and he would not say where he was or what he was doing after the battle. But he eventually regrouped with the rest, and his sonic screwdriver managed to dispel the evil magic empowering his enemies. He could even do it in mass. The only problem was, it took time, and the stronger they were, the more time it took. They had to remain within the sonic wave range throughout that whole time to disable them. I don't know why, but that device of his never seemed to exhaust its energy supply, so its utility helped them out greatly and consistently. He also used it to help heal the other injured ponies, which was actually his preferred choice in the battle. As I said in the beginning, the doctor was doing something. He is preparing something. I know it. This was still in the plan. If the dragon coming out was not part of the plan, and Card Dealer basically revealing his true form was not part of the plan, then he would have joined in, just stopping everything with his sonic screwdriver. But he knows how the game is playing, right? You can only use your Joker once, and to tell the truth, I have a feeling that Card Dealer actually used his own deck, well, not Joker, his own card at this point, because he revealed himself. Vision was one of the ponies most consistently on Starlight's search and rescue team, because she had the ability to help find the lies, even if the rest of the companions were blind. Her sonar vision was far more effective up close compared to afar, but her empathic sense helped guide the other members of her team. Wait, what? Help guide the other members of her team up to the other. Wait. Oh, okay. Spacing. But her empathic sense helped guide the other members of her team up the other ponies and the creatures, and help put them back to the base camp. Like the doctor, she had also access to the sonic device, but had considerably less experience in wielding it compared to the doctor, so so tactical use of it was more limited. She knew enough to disable many types of locks or repair them. She knew enough to aid her here, and she knew enough to aid her senses. She was also an expert at martial arts, and easily smashed any opponent in her way, but not as easily compared to living opponents. If they were living, she could have used her medical knowledge to disable their weaknesses and pressure points. Instead, she was mostly up against skeletal opponents, so smashing through them by hoof was the better way to go in this case. Since they were already corrupted dead, she did not hold back against them nearly as much as she did with most other opponents, but on the other hoof, they were naturally resistant against her attacks. Despite this, she usually had the upper hoof over any situation she faced, but I must give credit to her companions as well. They probably helped a lot. I have heard that Vision never lost her cool during the battle. It was as if she already knew they were going to win, and victory was eventually inevitable, so it wasn't worth stressing over. Given the fact she had the ability to see in the future, this was quite likely the reason for her confidence in that battle. But then again, Vision's futures can be changed. Had I been paused in thought to consider if he was missing any creature, then nodded to himself. Pharynx was completely missing, and he did not show up after the battle either. It was presumed he was wiped out by the initial lava blast, and if so, that was the only death among our own allies that we were aware of at the time. Thorax on the other hoof did survive, and he was unusually aggressive that day. He zipped back and forth in many forms, and he used whichever form was most advantageous in any situation he fought. For example, did you know changelings are fireproof if they morph into dragons? No, I didn't. Now, theory time. Frank was missing. We are talking about changelings. You cannot tell if he's in any other form. Maybe he's Fluttershy at this point, or he is the Doctor at this point. You can never tell. Of course I didn't know that. I have never met a changeling, or at least I think I haven't, Starbase said. Featherwind gave his daughter a cautious look. Let's hope you never do either. Changelings aren't always so nice. During this time period, they are evil, and they feed off of love. The conversion to a nicer, gentler race was recently changed in Tor's time period, and he was one of the leading causes of it. If you actually do encounter a changeling in this time period, I want you to back off, but not quickly. Do not arouse the suspicion. Do not let them know that you know what they are until you get in a better position. Understood? Yes, Dad. Thanks for the warning. Anyways, as I was saying, normal Thorax was quite timid. He was a friendly friend, but I had concerns for him if he entered into actual battle. Based on the reports I heard about him later, however, I learned he could be quite aggressive when he was busy defending his friends. He was probably also upset at the loss of his brother. Starbase eyes sadly. That may have been so. Featherwind partially agreed. Thorax and his brother has demonstrated that they could morph into inanimate objects as well. That made me wonder if they could ever morph into enchanted objects. My question at that point was never answered. I'm leaning on no, but they don't really seem to have a limit when it comes to their morphing ability. So Thorax in this case could also morph himself into a creature made of bone. Because he could disguise himself as the enemy, he could let them into clever traps or cause tactical diversions. It usually wasn't his idea. Such advice came from more tactical advisors like Stygian or Starlight. Can they also use unicorn magic if they morph into unicorn? Starbase asked curiously. Yes, I believe so. Featherwind answered. That said, very few of them are well versed in it. I heard the original Queen Crystallis was quite good at magic, even in her original form. But since the rest of the changelings were not nearly as good, I think she deliberately avoided teaching them in order to remain in power. For that matter, it also meant the changelings didn't even need to morph to gain access to unicorn-like magic, but due to largely ignorance, that was a rare talent among Taurus's pack, even before they were purified. Yeah, because they have horns. Some of them now have multiple horns as well. Wow! Starbase sounded impressed. It must be nice to be a changeling then. They basically get every advantage of any other race, and then some, since they can also morph into inanimate objects. In Taurus's time, it must be nice, but before that point, his species were basically enslaved by their former queen, and even without her, they were left starving all the time. They needed to feed off love and positive energy all the time, and Turk said they could never be full of it. Ew! Starbase winced in disgust. Okay, I take it back. Being a race that starves all the time isn't first the advantages that they have. David half shrugged. It's a complicated word. I already established where Fluttershy and I was. I also told you about Karchak, Spike, and Discord. Any other creature missing from the list? Yeah, a lot of them. Oh yeah, Trixie. Yeah, of course. Well, based on her testimony after the fight, I had assumed it was greatly exaggerated. From what I could tell from the others' report, Trixie figured out a great deal at the start of the fight, but then suddenly got cocky when she agreed with the rest. Naturally, she would not admit to the earlier part. If you believe her story, she blew her opponents away with her natural charisma right from the start, and they would not dare to curse her and her awesome amazingness. I have a feeling that there is some truth in that, because Karchak made a deal that no corrupted creature might attack Trixie. So Trixie might think it was her natural charisma. She doesn't know about this deal the card dealer made. Yep, that sounds like Trixie, alright, Starbase said with a roll of her eyes. It was far more likely that at best, she's scared of a few of, with some of her explosive, but mostly harmless bombs. At first, probably more likely she continued to freak out even when she got back to the camp. She probably covered in that ditch even after the singing started. From what I know of her, she would even question why the others would sing at a time like this, and it would take her a while to notice the singers were making positive contribution after all. But after that, she might have joined in and thereafter pretended she had done it all along. Jeez! Starbase applied both of her hooves on her eyes and shook her head. Why do you defend this idiot so much? Because she's my friend and I care about her, Featherwind said firmly. Because she's a lovable idiot. That's the reason, right? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Starbase apologized, and realized something as she lowered her hooves from her eyes. Hey, wait a second. Fang is about to crash down on top of that party, right? Now that most of your friends had gathered in one place, it would very likely draw his attention to that place as soon as he did go on the offensive, but he was under orders not to attack Trixie, so I'm curious, did her presence there help protect the other ponies at least indirectly? I doubt it. Featherwind replied. From what others told me, Fang did not hold back when he went on the offensive. He just swept a constant stream of fire across the landscape as he traveled. Since we have reached this part of the subject, let's go on to... Wait! What about Pinkie Pie and Applejack? Starbase interrupted with concern. Oh, thank you for the reminder. I had lots of friends to keep track of during this time period, so it helps to have a reminder. Let's see. Featherwind looked up, taking back. Applejack's position in this battle was kind of mixed as it went along. Initially, she was alone when the battle started. She managed to retreat to the edge of the crystal heart barrier and leapt beyond it when the Earth blew up. I think she even tried to warn her friends to do the same as she retreated. Physically, she did not start that bad off. Some of her hair on her tail got singed, from what I recall. The majority of the damage to her came later when she faced a bunch of the monsters, and at first she was mostly just galloping for her life. When she got rescued by the other police, however, she started to make more active role in the defense of the team. In her case, it was her trusty Rope that was her true friend and primarily true in defense of herself and others. As Rockhoof's shovel was synonymous to Rockhoof, so was the cowboy rope synonymous to Applejack. She knew how to use it well too, even for performances. It was difficult to call it an offensive weapon, she mostly used it for crowd control. She threw it around monsters' mouths to keep them from biting, or monsters' wings to crash them into the ground. Initially, Applejack started this battle very scared, but she ended it very bravely. Physically, she was a force to be reckoned with as well. I heard she pulled off some amazing feats on occasion. Once she got her courage back, Applejack was very helpful. Now Pinkie Pie, Dan, trying to remember. Featherwind paused for a moment as he tried to recall, then shook his head. It's a little unclear, and here's why. Because Pinkie Pie broke the barrier. She broke another barrier, let's just say it like that. The first one. Pinkie Pie is pretty random to begin with. But one thing I do know about the mare was she had a sixth sense for danger. That likely came in handy many times throughout the fight. From what I know of Pinkie, she probably taunted her opponents multiple times and proved almost immune to the Black Wizard's courage, training attacks. Her policy, escape the danger, was usually to laugh at it, and I could very easily imagine her doing that many times throughout the fight. She probably also splashed pies, cakes, and cupcakes straight into the enemy's faces. On top of that, she had unlimited access to a powder cannon, but ammunition was an issue on occasion, since I know that the backup supplies were in vicious saddlebags, and that ended up in the ditch. It was probably where Pinkie Pie eventually ended up. That said, she seemed to be able to store a surprising amount of stuff in her mail, even things that normally too big for it, like kind of like TARDIS itself. Aside from Earth ponies like Mage Meadowbrook or Vision, Pinkie was easily one of the most magical Earth ponies I have ever met. She could also stretch the impossible distances, apparently teleport if she was chasing some pony, and her mane could turn into useful tools like holding objects or, you know what, it's Pinkie Pie. As Rainbow Dash said so many times, never question her. Since the others had a hard time describing where she was or what she did, it seemed like she was bouncing all over the place and indirectly assisting her other friends. In Pinkie's case, she was at her best when she did not think about what she did, and in this instead relied on pure instinct. That also meant she had no strategy, but apparently she had not needed it either. She was very unpredictable, even to herself. When I asked her directly what she was doing in that fight, I think she answered, "Oh, you know, I was over here and over there. I met a lot of friends and I had fun. She cheered, and I kind of think she meant it. I know for a fact that seeing her friends physically hurt or mentally depressed really got to her. If she noticed it, she would try to fix it very stubbornly, but if she still failed, then she got very depressed and suddenly lost the vast majority of her powers. So in the end, I'm not exactly sure what happened to Pinkie Pie. I know she survived the battle, and even I think it was unscathed, which was really rare in this situation. Well, what probably occurred was she remembers having fun, but she doesn't remember the other part when she was depressed, and her other self killed most of the other enemies. Her picky sense defended her from every possible danger, at least on a personal level, the volcano included. I think she just bounced around randomly, doing whatever she felt like doing, That random behavior was hard to recall, even for her in the long gallop. She could have amazing memory when it comes to names and faces, but in other regards, her memory had lots of holes. All of this depended on what she considered a priority in her mind. If this was important, she would go out of her way to memorize it even in extreme detail. Otherwise, the information could just as easily be trashed and never recalled again. And of course, we had Princess Twilight Sparkle. She told me she mostly just hung out at base camp. In fact, her initial position she started later became the base camp. She was good at gathering her friends to a position. I can't even tell you why on a completely conscious level. There was just something about her that drew others to her. She is a Twilight Star, obviously. She met Princess Celestia, Luna, Cadence, and Shining Armor first, but the latter two quickly left to find their daughter. We established what happened to them earlier. The three princesses left, worked together to help organize the plan, and got the situation under control. I have spoken with Twilight enough times to know, for a fact, that she was not as strong or as brave as she pretended to be, but she often found it necessary to hold a brave face, even if she failed otherwise. That was actually the mark of a good leader. The truth was, she often was very scared, but struggled against that fear for the sake of her friends. That probably was inspiring to those who witnessed her, and most likely very few had realized how hard she actually struggled. That might have even been true for the closest friends. Out of all of them, I suspect it was Starlight that had the most insight into her old teacher's mindset. Well, that and Spike. Twilight was very good with magic, even compared to her own teachers. A lot of ponies thought she could even rival Starlight himself, but Twilight had not agreed. Actually, I'm pretty sure she knew exactly how many spells she had mastered, and had a very good idea how many Star Swarm had mastered, unless there was some he hadn't written down, or it got lost in history. But even comparing what was known, she figured her old idol far outclassed her. In terms of spells known, Star Swarm probably did have the upper hoof, but Twilight easily made up for it with her leadership skills, friendly support, and intense inner strength. If you consider compassion inner strength too, then add it to this list as well. I saw her as very well-rounded and talented pony. The numerous tools she had at her disposal helped her adapt to any situation she faced, especially with the support of her friends. In a crisis situation, she was always at her strongest, with her friends to guard her back, and in return, she gave plenty of support to them as well. To say she was useful only because of the spells she blasted back and forth really demeans her. There was so much more talent she offered, and in this situation, every little bit helped. We were dropped in an unfriendly environment, initially spread and surrounded by many enemies. To look at that, and to look at the fact we made it through the battle with absolutely no casualties, except for maybe Fangs, I would say they all did a legendary job. But yeah, the Dragon Fang had eventually showed up. When he had, someone defended them from Fang's breath weapon with many diagonal towers of crystal spikes, so right off the bat, he immediately saved every pony's life in the base camp for the moment he showed up. This was a titanic problem, and some police lost their nerve in the beginning. I can so hate Takeshy being one of them, Starby said with a sigh. Fadevin glared at his daughter and said, "Down, girl!" Starby waved off at him. I can imagine a necklace forming around Starbreeze, a pearl necklace with fangs, and she just sits down with the magic of it. Down, girl! I know you didn't meant this as a reference, but it became one for me. You know I'm right. You know I'm right, Starry said under her breath. This was a problem for all of our friends. This was the final boss of this particular fight. And they weren't even done with the other monstrous minions yet. Fairy's mere presence seems to make the gravity heavier. The flap of his wings created windstorms. Only clips? That is actually one of the animes I have grown up with. The Wonderbots, Rainbow Dash included, quickly answered that attack by working together and flapping back. Together they caused a counter wind to help neutralize Fang's own attack. Fang stopped flapping at one moment and allowed himself to drop down on top of Sombra's crystal towers. Despite having no meat or skin on his bones, Fang landed on top of his crystal towers, as if he had his full weight during life. It immediately started cracking, and the cracks spread very quickly. Featherwind paused for a moment, then said, I'm not completely sure what happened next, because the reports I got were mixed. It was pure chaos, what they said. There was an explosion of action. So many things happened all at once, and each creature had a hard time noticing it all, so they couldn't report to me later as efficiently either. I do know only our allied dragons kept flying back and forth breathing fire on, well, a fireproof creature. Flash Magnus tried to defend ponies with his shield, but the flames were so large, it just went around his shield. He could only defend himself and those very close behind him. Our allied dragons were like mere rats to this gigantic dragon, but at least they were barely affected by Fang's effective fire breath attack in return. Some of the ponies described the rain of spells being showered upon Fang. Some of those attacks even came from above. At one time Celestia, Twilight, Luna, and Starlight, who floated with them technically, all joined together and shot a huge combined beam, which pounded into the dragon's back. He looked up at them in annoyance, then flew on after them. It turns out that this was part of the plan. They pulled back, then scattered into a bunch of clouds. Other Pegasus ponies put there, ahead of time. At that point, Fang could not even locate his targets. But even if he had, he would have to chase them down, one by one, since they split apart from each other. And that is not a song that is fitting for this part, that's for sure. There we go. The point was, it drew him away from their base camp, where his own weight alone was about to crush the innocent ponies trapped underneath it. Happy peaceful battle music. Sway back and forth. This is not the best either, but I think we are gonna kill Fang at this point. Again. Then your mother came crashing down upon his back like a meteor. Her veins brilliantly flared with streaming red light projected from the crystal spine. She succeeded to drive him all the way down to the ground. From there, she smashed into his spine over and over again, and did serious damage to him every time. Since she also enhanced her senses, she was aware when his head spun about and tried to bite her. She rolled off his back, and he ended up biting his own back. Now on the ground, he swatted at her with one claw. Not only had she caught it, but she tore his own arm off, then proceeded to swap him using his own arm as a weapon. Doing all of this was terribly draining on her magical energy, but she still teased him. Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? But by that point, she tapped it enough that she lost control over her own mind again, and along with it, her natural restraint. Wow! Starbeast exclaimed. If she was strong enough to back down a giant dragon using his own oversized arm, then how the hell did you survive her attacks? If she was that powerful back then there was no way you could have survived, especially when you were that exhausted. I have several explanations for this. For one thing, she had not mastered her own abilities at the time. She had no restraint at first, but it was precisely that allowed her to tap even greater potential later on down the road. Also, she was not wearing her prison armor when she fought. If she had, I would have instantly recognized her, and she would have been able to physically endure greater amounts of enchantment. Since she was wearing it this time, it slowed the massive stamina drain on her system. My last explanation is that she was just like a savage animal when I first fought her, but in that battle she was fighting for all her friends and loved ones, including all the ones left back in our timeline. She gave this everything she had, and more, and because of it, she was amazing. But that's not all. Now that the massive dragon was down, it gave your mother's allies chance to regather and respond. Sombra buried Fang in a crystal after crystal, stabbing right through the dragon's castle system. That meant the crystals were inside of the dragon. They even expanded from there. I have no idea where Sombra was finding all this magic, especially after exhausting fight earlier defending Fairy Heart. All I can say is he was just that amazing. Now, this is the reason why Doctor chose this version of Sombra, because when he was kinda corrupted, he was at his peak of his magic. Am I right about that? With Fang's incredible strength, even though he was disarmed a bit, he started to crack through those crystals. But then he had other things to start to bury him. Rodon grew trees out from the earth and started to entangle the dragon with it, particularly the one forward claw he had left. Starsword covered the dragon in massive energy web. Several unicorns blasted him from the side. If you believe Takeshy, she tossed a smoke bomb at him from what it was worth. Starlight claims she reinforced the efforts of the others, even donated some of her magic to them. Come to think of it, maybe that was where Sombra got his burst of energy. Then, at Starsword's request, he asked a bunch of the unicorns and the licorns to join him in casting powerful spell. Why they did that? Your mother kept working the dragon back down every time he tried to get up. Meanwhile, with each other licorn and unicorn that joined together in a group spell, it helped to minimize the long casting time. Starsword opened up a massive portal high into the air, and a real starlight dust comet shot through it and crashed into the dragon, which obliterated him. The comet was charged with pure and intense positive energy magic, in addition to the momentum of its own weight crashing down upon the dragon at very high speed, so it proved especially effective against the dragon's negative energy and pervert skeleton body. Together the allies had to brace for the impact, but at least they had enough warning, since this attack was prepared by the allies. They erected a shield to block the brunt of the attack, including Reddish Gem Shield. There was a moment of reprieve following that attack. The remaining monsters just saw the opponents defeat a powerful ally, so it took a while for them to regather their courage and resume their assault. Before that happened, Sombra warned the rest of his allies where Fairy Heart was. They moved back to a position together. Several ponies worked to immediately help to heal very hard upon arrival, including my father. Zachor gave Flurryheart some smelling salts, which worked to awaken Flurryheart with a start. Shortly after that, she was able to summon the Crystal Heart and project the barrier. That pushed away the few monsters who managed to gather in time and kept out the rest. To this day, I will continue to give credit where credit is due. If it weren't for Flurryheart's parents' barrier magic, she would have been defenseless against those who tried to assert her while she was still unconscious. But while that barrier was very effective, it could not amount to the sheer size that Crystal Heart itself could form, nor it could be maintained as easily, especially by oppressed by the closer proximity to the Dark Star. Spike later claimed that he saw a light of the Crystal Heart barrier. He flew back and informed the rest of his friends where I was. Your mother immediately demanded to be shown the way. Flash Magnus and his company of Royal Legion agreed to accompany her to defend her from the monsters that were outside of the barrier. They went, but Flurryheart also made her ways towards me. The others followed her to make sure they remained within the barrier. It ended up that your mother, Flash Magnus, and the Royal Legion remained to defend me, while they simply waited for the barrier to catch up to them. And then, I was finally safe. While I was still unconscious, Spike filled everyone else on what he knew before he was teleported away. And that is the end of chapter 23. So we still don't know what game Karchak is playing at the end. And they are still not safe. They are kinda safe because the Crystal Heart is back. And no pony died. Except Fang's question mark. I still think Fangs has to do something here. You mentioned him too many times to think to be something that we don't need to be concerned about. That's for sure. I still have a feeling that he is somewhere. And maybe by the doctor's orders, he might be missing. More exposition style, but at least not doing more time skips. Yeah, it was obviously Featherwind could not give a proper explanation of what happened because he was out of it and he could only gather what the others said, and we know the Trixie that everything is out of proportion when she tells her story because she's a performer. And during this time of war, adrenaline is gonna change everything. It's like a telephone game when you start with something that is a truth, and at the end by it reaches the last one, like Featherwind, it's gonna change a lot. But probably the meaning is still the same. They defeated Fang, but Fluttershy is still Fluttershy question mark. Let's just say it like that. Is still under the orders of Karchak or Double Dealer or Master, whatever you wanna call it. And they went to meet the Dark Star. Again, Fluttershy is one of the ponies that can be easily influenced by things. What do you think of their performances during the battle, assuming that testimony is accurate? Well, I'm gonna upload the Trixie that she didn't faint at the beginning, even if it's accurate. Because the others could have easily said that, oh yeah, we actually found her fainted in the battlefield, but no. Obviously, we had the most magical beings in Equestria, the most powerful ones, like 4 Alicons, here, so obviously we had enough firepower to go in, even without the crystal heart. They could have even do it like Quill. Look at this. What would they do? They just stroll in, fight them, then create the crystal heart barrier to refresh their magic, and then stop it, fight again, go. Yeah, but then again, that would not be a 2-year working, but it would be like 5 years or something like that. But then again, it wouldn't do anything because they would just kill the corrupted creatures. If you don't do anything to the source of the problem, it won't happen. But yeah, they did well. They definitely did well. Especially that the crystal heart was not there at that point. So they had no defense at all against the Dark Star. What I'm curious about, how the hell did they not get infected? I have a feeling that this was not like plague. It is not like plague. That whatever he touched, he corrupted as well. But these are just corrupted creatures. They do not corrupt each other. That's their only luck. The time clones are inexhaustible, but their magic was. Yep, I know that. And I have a feeling that Sombra actually tapped into his dark self as well during the fight, but he obviously did not speak about that. Because that would cause panic. Even that being said, where the hell did he get so much magic from? Well, first of all, he was at his peak. But the second, the love magic also replenished his magic a little bit. But still, it was not only that. One thing they did that helped defend themselves from the dark side influence was singing and their united spirit. Yeah, if their heart broke and their spirit broke, the war would have been over. Because they would have been given into the darkness. And I have to take back what I think happened, that if Pinkie Pie would have given into the darkness, then she wouldn't only kill the corrupted enemies. He would become corrupted as well, but no, she kept on smiling. Yeah, so not just a physical battle, they had challenges on many fronts. Yeah, they lost one though. They lost one battle, which is losing Fluttershy. And we know that she is one of the, let's just say it, the trump cards, one of the trump cards in this game, because they need her to defeat the Dark Star. Karchak knows that. Because without her, there is no element of harmony. At least, that's not true. We know the other element of harmony is still there, but and thanks. If he's dead, he might have died in the volcano explosion. I still think he is not dead. I still do think he is not dead. I have a feeling he is following the doctor's orders, and he might even be Fluttershy at this moment. That would have been a great turn, but I don't think that's what it happens. But he can be any rock around here. Who knows? Nobody knows what he is. But the question is, that's a great question. Can other changelings stall other changelings if they are turned? Well, if Thorax found the rock and oh hey brother, you can turn back now, would it happen? Because I know Queen Crystals could look through these illusions that they project. Just think about it. If the Doctor had allies like that in the previous adventures, all the tricks he could have played on his enemies. Yep. There were lots of enemies that he could have tricked with. But that's gonna be next time, right? Also, let's see. The next chapter is 10,000 words. Okay, that's not too bad. And it's called Old Force and the Crystal Carriage. Crystal Carriage. Wow. I have a feeling that the Old Force is referring to the Master, but we will see. We will see. It was a good and action-packed fight. There were a lot of references, even one I made up. But predictions, we will definitely have to deal with the Master. We have to say it like that. The Master. We will definitely have to deal with him, because until we get Fluttershy back and the crystal back, which is now corrupted, and cleans the crystal, the red crystal, we are not gonna be able to do anything against the source of darkness. That's for sure. But the question is, what is he playing at? We know he says it's all for Trixie, but do we believe him? He might think that it is all for Trixie, but then again, it's not. We know that the Double Dealer is not playing one game. He is playing many games at the same time. He might be even playing the Dark Star. At least trying to. In the meantime, I'm editing the thing right here. Does it make him interesting a character? Yeah, but obviously we will see how this play out. For now, he's an interesting character, but everything is gonna be decided when we meet him next, or what his game is. Because until then, it can be anything, right? He can still turn out to be a one-dimensional character at one point, but I hope not. I hope that's not the case. I hope she has... He is a double dealer, we know. And he is speaking about, oh yeah, there are many jokers in the card, and when they are shuffled back in the deck, you can't use them again. What if he is using 2 decks? Or 4 decks at the same time? Like, Karchak certainly knows how to play games. We definitely know that he has a different kind of card in his deck as well, which is himself, the king. but he not only has that. That's for sure. And he is just as a planner as the Doctor himself. And just remember, the Doctor invited him. We have to remember that. And I have a feeling the Doctor realized it much sooner that he is the Master than Featherwind did. So this all might have been a plan. He can be a double backstabber as well. we will have to see really soon, because obviously in the next chapter we will have to deal with him. Because he is the main enemy at this point. Doctor is brilliant. But yeah, I have a feeling that in 24 we will find out his true intentions, at least fight him. And after that we will have to reach the Dark Star and then again another war. When I start reading, let's see. I have to check. Give me a minute. I have to check my schedule. Okay, I checked it, it's on Monday. So 3 days from now on. Monday same time. That should be good for you, right? But after Monday I won't be able to stream like this for the whole day, for the whole week, sadly. Because I will be working at the morning. That's sad, but yeah. I think now, really soon, I'm gonna end it. And, you know, I need to get some recording, probably. Because I did not record any of the episodes. Not of My Little Pony, not of Ruby, not of anything at this point. I need to get back to it. That's how power and that holds out then. Yep. And my coffee is gone. Just at the last second. Yeah, I have to say it, the story is starting to get more and more interesting. Especially since this war happens. I'm curious what you are planning to do with the Doctor and the Double Dealer. But now, I'm gonna leave. If that's okay with you. And see you next time. See you Monday. Bye bye.